Welcome to Liesel's Artistic Studio. Just a few weeks ago, while I was doing a different spring tutorial, I mentioned it was actually still snowing where I live, but the past couple of days have been beautiful weather and I finally am feeling spring coming. So I couldn't help but want to paint something bright and cheerful. So I'm glad you're here to paint this spring wreath with me today. All right, let's get started. For supplies today, I have watercolor paper cut in a square shape for my wreath. Then on my paper, I have a circle drawn lightly with pencil to help guide my wreath shape. Now you might notice my circle isn't actually directly in the center of my paper. I've drawn it slightly more to the upper right-hand corner so that when I paint the bulk of the wreath in the bottom left corner, it will appear like it's more in the center of the page when I'm done. Then I have a large number 12 round brush for the flowers and some larger leaves. And then I have a size 0 round brush for thin lines and small leaves. I also have water, a paper towel, and watercolor paints. Today is the first time I will actually be using this new ceramic palette, so we'll see how it goes. For my colors today, I have Azo Yellow, Gamboge, Sap Green, and Hooker's Green. Now, these are the colors I've chosen to use for today, but you are the artist for your work and you can paint this with whatever colors you'd like. In fact, you could even paint this exact same wreath for different seasons if you change the colors to seasonal colors. And as always, for any details or information on any of these products, click on the description of this video. Okay, let's start this painting off with the main flowers of the wreath. So I'm going to mix Azo Yellow and Gamboge together here to get a yellow color that's sort of in between these two. And remember, if you need to check your mixed color before painting, use a scrap piece of paper to test out your color on. Then when you've got your yellow the way you want, load the large brush with color and create 5 petals on the lower left corner of the circle to make one flower. I like to create my petals with the tip of the brush at the center of the flower. Then I just push down on the brush to create a nice broad stroke. Usually 1 or 2 strokes can create a pretty nice petal shape. Now while that flower is still wet, take some pure Gamboge and add dots of color to the center of the flower and let it spread up the petals a little bit. Then do all of this over again to create another flower right next to the first. You know, there are a couple of benefits of using a large brush for these flowers. Because it only takes 2 strokes per petal, you can paint them really fast. These brushes also can hold a lot of paint. You'll notice I've only dipped my brush once into the yellow and I've been able to paint the entire flower. Also, if you're finding this video helpful in any way, I hope you'll subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss more of my flower and spring tutorials. All right, now let's let those flowers dry for just a minute before we move on. You know, I have recently been experimenting with all different brands and types of watercolor paper. Today's painting is on this Arches cold press 140 pound 100% cotton paper. It's got good texture to it and it seems to be really doing good so far, so we'll see how it finishes up. All right, now that that's dried a little bit, I'm going to take my small round brush and with some sap green, I'm going to paint a few thin lines stemming out from these flowers as well as along the pencil circle line. These will be some of the areas that I'll paint some leaves along later. Now that I have a few stem lines for some leaves, I'm going to paint some very small leaves here using the small round brush and some sap green. So I mentioned earlier that I'm using a new palette today. My old palette was made out of plastic. I've been using it for 18 years, but the plastic has become really stained and it's old and it's actually starting to crack and chip. So I decided it's time to treat myself to a new ceramic palette. I'm really sad to let go of my old one. A lot of great paintings have come out of it, so it's going to take a while to get used to this new one, but hopefully it's going to be okay. All right, now still using the sap green, I'm going to switch over to my large round brush and add in some larger leaves now. One of the trickiest things for me when I'm painting a floral or a leaf wreath is knowing when to stop. It is so easy to just keep adding more flowers and more leaves, but I really have to try to watch myself to make sure I don't overdo it or go overboard. Sometimes I have to remind myself less is more. So maybe you don't struggle with that, but I know I do. Okay, I'm going to rinse my brush off here and put some pure azo yellow onto my mixing tray and add a little bit of water to it. And as a quick tip, if your rinsing water is pretty dirty right now, it might be a good idea to change it and get some clean fresh water so this yellow doesn't get tinted green. Now I'm just going to use this large brush to create some small little flowers alongside my wreath. Now these are not complicated. I'm just making 2 or 3 marks with the brush to create something that could represent a little flower. Then I'll just set that large brush aside for a minute without rinsing the paint out, and I'll switch over to the small brush. Then I'll take a little bit of Hooker's Green, and while these flowers are still wet, I'm just barely going to touch the bottom of the little flower so that it blends together slightly at the base. Then I'll paint a thin stem coming out from that point that can connect the flower to the main wreath. These are just some cute and extremely simple little flowers that add a little pop of color onto your wreath, and of course you can pick any color you want. It doesn't have to be yellow. Now that I've had a chance to see how my composition is turning out, I feel like I need to add just a few more larger sap green leaves here and there. And then I'll take my small brush and some Hooker's Green to add a few smaller leaves to fill in some of the gaps. At this point, just add in whatever feels right for you and your painting. But like I said before, just be careful to not overdo it. These larger flowers look good just how they are, but I think I'll take a little bit of this hooker's green and add some dots of color right at the centers. Now it's time to take the tape off and erase any pencil lines that you can still see. Just make sure that the painting is fully dry so you don't smudge or smear anything. I have done that before and it is so frustrating. Now you can choose to leave your wreath just how it is, or you can write a word in the center of it with paint, a thin marker, or a pen. And here is your fun and easy, beautiful springtime wreath that only took minutes to complete. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please consider subscribing to my channel so I can continue to help you discover your artistic side.